Season 2 of The Last of Us is just around the corner, and it was only a few days ago that I was among a lucky few people who got to attend a premiere screening of the first episode, and without spoiling it, I have a lot of faith in this season. I think Season 1 of The Last of Us was a solid piece of TV, playing it safe in Episode 1 by recreating iconic moments and shots, which with some media can be seen as a little bit corny or even uncreative, but when it came to the pilot of The Last of Us, a very treasured game that a lot of people hold at a very high standard, it felt like an homage to the game. So props to Craig Mazin for taking us on that journey. But with Season 2 approaching quickly and a Minecraft movie now in cinemas, it got me thinking about how far video game adaptations have come over the years, and what's changed since the early days of 1993 when we got the critically panned Super Mario Bros. Movie, versus the days of now, where we got the critically mixed Super Mario Bros. Movie.
I'm tired.
I'll come out and say it immediately, I'm not a massive gamer, unless we're talking Fortnite. Throw me into Tilted Towers with an invincible skin and I'm your guy. But beyond that, I'm really only familiar with some of the stuff that has been adapted, such as Arcane, Fallout, Sonic the Hedgehog, and who could forget Angry Birds the movie, featuring Smosh. And sometimes these game-to-movie combos work, but a lot of the time it feels like if you mix a video game and a movie, you're almost guaranteed to get some poo put on your cinema screen, or worse, your home television. Oh no! And you can make the argument of, oh, well, it's just the kids' movies that are bad. Hello? Have you seen the Lego Movie? I know it's not based on a video game, but it comes from a children's IP. And look, upon first glance, you'd probably give it a no thanks. But then you actually watch it, and you're lying to yourself if you can't admit it goes so fucking hard. But I think the problem lies, a lot of the time, in the creatives behind these movies who have no idea what a video game is, or know why something like Mario is popular and enjoyable.
Does the DVD player go into the cable?
Just as an example, and you can call me crazy all you want, but honestly, for all of its flaws, the Detective Pikachu movie isn't all that bad. Sure, it reads like that weird Muppet gangster movie that had Melissa McCarthy in it at times, but it also kind of felt like one of those Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. At least Detective Pikachu had similarities to some of the source material, not the anime or the games per se, but the essence of a spin-off that I really sunk my teeth into when I was a kid. Who remembers Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Sky? Can I see some hands? And that shit felt like a goddamn horror game sometimes, by the way. But look, Detective Pikachu, it wasn't great. It was a movie to test the waters of the Pokemon IP, and of course to give Ryan Reynolds a little bit more cash. But I didn't hate it, and it wasn't nearly as bad as the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but even then, I'd still call that a box office success. But then that begs the question of, why did that movie do well, but something like the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie flop? Circling back to my previous statement about creative control, I think it comes down to how companies aren't as quick to sell their brands as they were back in the day. I'm sure when Nintendo was approached back in the 90s by some scheming Hollywood executive to make a movie, they didn't give it a second thought. The Mario brand was already well established, and making a movie, that's basically just free money at that point. But after it lost tens of millions of dollars, Nintendo held back from licensing anything ever again, and rightfully so. But that's not to say that others didn't try it out. Remember the Far Cry movie? Nobody does. That's because it was a monumental flop, not even managing to bank $1 million at the box office, with a $30 million budget, by the way. But it flew under the radar just enough to not smear the franchise itself. Things like this kept happening with Tomb Raider, Silent Hill, and other notable games being transferred to the big screen, and it wasn't until the years 2019 and 2020 that a movie actually got regarded as fresh, according to Rotten Tomatoes. Enter Sonic the Hedgehog, which managed to tick all of the boxes that film creatives nor game developers had the thought of, which was making your movie for the target audience, the fans. Although Sonic learnt that the hard way thanks to its first trailer.
Meow?
Anyways, Sonic exploded at the box office, garnering $320 million during the COVID pandemic, which was a major success at the time, not just for films in general, but also video game adaptations. And it has led to 2 more successful movies, a television spin-off, and another sequel in the works. Ever since then, there's been a serious uptick in good quality video game adaptations, with shows like The Last of Us showing a faithfulness to the game itself, and showing that there's more to making a product than just throwing a bunch of CGI garbage in your face and putting an A-lister like Dwayne the Bald Johnson on screen. Craig Mazin and the game creator himself, Neil Druckmann, knew what they wanted this show to be, and took the necessary steps to not destroy the show's core fan base, which was the people who played the games, or 14-year-olds that watched PewDiePie play it.
Weird, like
me. In order for the adaptation to work, your game needs to also have a coherent story. A game like Mario isn't necessarily a story-driven game. It's more about the game mechanics, and the slightest hint of a story comes from Princess Peach needing to be rescued from a giant lizard. That's about it. The Last of Us is mainly story, and same goes for other games such as Death Stranding, Fallout, or Uncharted 4. But with a good creative mind and not casting Mark Wahlberg in your movie, you can somehow make a critically acclaimed animated series called Arcane that I can guarantee half the fanbase hasn't even played the game it's based on. Look, there are aspects of the founding fathers of video game movies that are likable, albeit corny, but if you don't look at it through the lens of it being based on the game itself, it's honestly not bad and kind of campy. The Illumination Mario movie isn't a good film when standing on its own 2 feet, but if you've played the games before, you can admit that it nails the look. Goombas look like Goombas, Chris Pratt slips into the role of Mario perfectly, and I hit someone with my car this morning. One of those statements is a lie. It's up to you which one it is. All in all, I think there's a lot of promise when it comes to the future of video game adaptations, with generic superhero genre movies starting to make their way out the door, and video games seem to be the next big thing, so long as both sides of the creative spectrum can work together by maintaining the same caliber of the games but keeping it fresh for moviegoers. And right now, there's some great stuff being produced along with exciting stuff in the future that I'm looking forward to. Except for that Until Dawn movie, that looks like dog shit. Ultimately, this is going to become dry at some point because Hollywood loves to beat a dead horse, but for now, join me in flocking to the cinemas and watching a Minecraft movie and crying out in joy when Jack Black says his iconic line,
Who are you?